back to episode number 57 of Inside the Vault. I'm your host, Ryan Smith. My guest today is a versatile guy that you can find on many places. He is an A-State alumnus, Panthers fan, UNC fan, Heat fan, New York Yankees fan, host of YT WassupDoug, and welcome to the show, Mr. Douglas. What's up, Doug?
I appreciate that, Ron. Like I said, yeah, you can call me Doug, C Doug. People even call me C Dub. So, yes, sir, man. I definitely appreciate the invite, man. Definitely appreciate the invite.
And it says you're in Texas, right? You were in North Carolina,
Correct.
now
I
you're in
am currently
Texas.
located in Texas.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I've been to Arlington. I've been to the Cowboys Stadium. Fun fact, I was there, and this is for the listeners as well, because I don't care that people know this. I was there when Tony Romo's career was ended by Thomas Davis on that sack and the Thanksgiving Day game where Kuechly had two pick sixes, and it was an absolutely beautiful thrashing of the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, the golden days there. But
So
I was
I'll tell
there.
you this: I'm only 5 lights away from Cowboys Stadium. So I'm literally right across from Six Flags. I can see the stadium outside my apartment window. So hey, I know exactly the feeling living in Arlington. You know, not a Cowboys fan, but just being around football is a good thing as well too.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of get into it with the Panthers 2024 season that ended back in December. We'll do mostly offseason today on the podcast, but just your quick overview of the Panthers 2024 season from your lens.
Um, Roller coaster. Like literally, I just said I live right around the corner from Six Flags. It's really a roller coaster. Depends on the fan that you ask. I don't think it was good enough. Some people still don't believe in Dave Canales. Some people don't believe in Dan Morgan. I think it's just
Some people don't believe
uh,
in Bryce Young.
yeah. I mean that's the obvious one. I really feel like it's a bag of grapes. Also, another metaphor. You got some sweet ones. You got some sour ones. Depends on your bag. And for me, the last 10 games on the offense side of the ball, everybody's going to talk about, was a great showing for Dave Canales even said in his opening presser. It's going to take time. And that time finally showed in the back end of the 10 games to finish out the season.
Yeah.
Other side of the ball is the defense. Dan Morgan came out during his presser, said, hey, I am the reason why the shortcomings came on the defense. I know what I have to do. I have to give Evero better pieces for this scheme. We believe in this scheme. Da 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 whoop de whoop de whoop. I was able to speak to Dan Morgan, about that. We'll talk about that throughout this episode. But I do like the promise that we were able to see in the last 10 games, especially the last game with the Atlanta Falcons. That offense was clicking from start to finish. I think we do attack the defensive front like we did in year one underneath Dan Morgan as a GM. I do think there are better times are coming sooner than later.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the offseason. Kind of, we'll start with your whereabouts and where you have been. The Senior Bowl happened, the Shrine Bowl happened. Talk to me about kind of your experience, what you observed, what you saw. I know you sent me a couple of things kind of on your purview. But one person that caught my eye that you did send me just from the ones that you actually specifically sent me
Yes, sir.
was the first guy that you sent was Kobe Bryant from Kansas. I've heard his name a lot. Guy is probably not going to be a first round pick, but he's sliding up the draft boards quickly.
About
Someone who
late
can make his
second,
name
early
well known.
third.
Yeah,
Yeah, late second, early third. And I am going to cut you off at that end, Ryan. But for me, I was having the privilege of having my first media credential going out to the Shrine Bowl here in Frisco, also Arlington, where the game was actually held. But that was one of the first players I wanted to see. Going out on there Sunday, I had a list of names. I was had a live with PNP where we were talking about prospects from the Senior Bowl and Shrine Bowl, and Kobe Bryant was one of my players I was looking to look forward to seeing in person. And when I first seen him, I was like, oh, he's frail. That was the very first thing. He was, he needed some weight on him. But whenever he came for one-on-ones, he held his own. Reminded me a lot of a Dante Jackson that we had here, very frail, but Kobe Bryant's a lot bigger in height. Um, every practice from Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, the man had to pick a day. Whenever they did walkthroughs, when I was able to go back and talk to him and go to walkthrough practice on Tuesday, he literally said some of the GMs told him there's nothing else for him to show them right now. He literally said there's nothing else for him to show on the field. Now it's to the combine if he gets that invite, which I'm hoping so. We can see that 40, we can see that athleticism even on a bigger stage on NFL Network with the Combine. But Kobe Bryant is a corner that I am still high on. Like Ryan said, his stock is going up by the day. And again, if he has a good showing at the combine, I can only imagine. I do not still think he will be a first round pick, but depends on the team. And I will say a team that I think is very high on him is the Denver Broncos. Their DB coach was out there doing DB drills with all the corners that were represented on the east side for the East and West Shrine game. So Kobe Bryant is still one of my diamonds in the rough. I call him diamonds in the rough because he's not a first round pick. I do think he will get drafted again late second, but definitely the third. And again, depending on how that stock goes during the combine, he can just keep going up and up.
Yeah. Who were some other guys that stuck out to you at the Shrine Bowl, and some of the guys that you thought have a good shot at going high in the draft?
Jordan Phillips. Shout out to CJ at over Carolina's armchair GM. Formerly two fans in the stands. I definitely think Jordan Phillips is going to surprise a lot of people. He is very. I don't know why his numbers didn't translate over to higher numbers, but when you see him face to face going against offensive linemen that were there, he also made he made the West All Shrine team out there during practice. Um, Another one is Hassamin. I can't say his last name from Boise State. He's another DN. He actually got he was also recognized as an all East and West Shrine team for the West Side as well. But he was another like Kobe, did everything in practice, killed it in practice during one-on-ones, killed it during team drills, actually did not play and make it to the game because they said that he's done enough and showed enough, and he showed that he can play with the bigger schools with them coming from a group of five school out of Boise State. Um, I'll give you another one. Wide receiver Jimmy Horn Jr. had that privilege of interviewing him.
I
True
could see
Florida
him
guy.
drafted. Yeah.
Yeah, I love his charisma, his enthusiasm, his down to earthness. Jimmy was just cool, man. He was a great young man to chop it up with, talk with. That interview, even though it was kind of short, you can just see how he was kind of nervous, but the camera doesn't really show how personable he was with me interviewing him. I'm really rooting for Jimmy. Congratulations to him. He actually got an NFL Combine invite, so I can't wait for him to even have his stock move up as well, along with Kobe here at the end of this month.
Awesome. Yeah, and then the Senior Bowl. Did you catch anybody there
Yeah,
from
oh
who
yeah,
the?
like I told you, Ron, I was doing those earlier.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
one thing I would say, most of the guys that I have in my mock drafts in my 1.0, you will see that, oh, Doug, you were paying attention to certain players. Mike Green is one. One thing that I will say the Panthers did, and Dan Morgan's and Dave Canales' first year as GM and head coach was that they found they got enamored with a player, and that player was Xavier Leggett. The same thing that they're doing right now is Carolina Panthers article came out that they are, excuse me, there's five players that they're interested in whose stock they think have went up and they actually helped themselves in the Senior Bowl. Number one was Mike Green. It's the same thing with Xavier Leggett. Xavier Leggett, we knew it. He came from South Carolina. We have a lot of Gamecock fans that are in the fan base. And when he was able to show what he was able to do down in Mobile last year, it's the same thing with Mike Green. Only thing that's different with Mike Green is he came from a smaller school. That's
Right.
the only thing that does kind of, I'm not gonna say scares me, but I mean he's led the NCAA in sacks. But what he was able to do, I understand is one highlight. That's just the one highlight that showed when he was able to overpower the Oregon's tackle. But he was able to actually hold his own throughout the 2 days that he did practice before he left the Senior Bowl. Um, the other one is Beck, the wide receiver out of TCU. I know a lot of people like Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. I actually think he's a good option as well. But just what Beck was able to do, I think he's on everybody's radar now. Underrated wide receiver that you have Roll from Utah State. Like I said, you had Higgins, Restrepo from Miami. There's always that diamond in the rough wide receiver that you don't think is gonna make noise, but when they get the opportunity to come out. I mean, he was a thousand wide receivers that were out there, but he never didn't have that spotlight because TCU had a bad year out
Yep.
here in Fort Worth. So for him to get the MVP, get the game-winning touchdown, his story about his brother passing, unfortunately with the tragedy that happened in New Orleans, that's a great story to end before you go into the draft. That's just a couple of people that I like, but I would say the D linemen help themselves. Depends on what Carolina wants to do with our picks. If we're going to trade back, stay at 8, or even move up. I do think that is a option. Speaking to Dan Morgan, they're going to be aggressive. They might double dip as well.
And so let's get into that Dan Morgan conversation. What were you able to gather with him, talking with him?
So it was again. This was on Sunday. Give me 1 second. This was on Sunday. So um, I was looking around. I passed Steelers GMs. I'm like, where's Carolina? So, lo and behold, when I was walking on one of the sidelines, I seen a Panther logo. I said, okay, let me snoop around. And another one came around. I said, is Dan Morgan here? They said, yeah, he's here, but he's not on this side. He's on the other end. So, whenever I was walking the field, the scouts were looking at O line and D line. Dan Morgan was over there looking at wide receivers and wide receivers and corner matchups, but he was moving around the whole time. But he wasn't in the limelight. He was basically head down looking at players. I approached him and said, how are you doing, Mr. Morgan? He was even got to call me that. We chopped it up. I told him, I love what he did for the first year. And literally his answer was, we have a plan. We're going to be aggressive with our plan. Um, we know that we have to, Bryce is the answer. I think everybody knows that now. But he said, I mean, we have to still add on both sides of the ball, meaning that
Sure.
we have to get that playmaker on offense. We still need to fix the defense. We know how the defense has had injuries, and one thing he said is injuries has affected this defense in this scheme. Meaning he's probably talking about Derek Brown. He's probably talking about losing Shat Thompson. You did lose Trevin Wallace. Luckily, we did have J.C. Horn for a full year almost this year.
Basically, a
So,
full year.
for me, it was more of he was basically not giving me names, but he basically told me they're going to be aggressive. There is a plan. Kind of alluded to what they did in year one when underneath him, how aggressive they were to fix the needs. I know people like those splash players of getting a wide receiver, running back, those glamorous players. But when you fix the trenches and now we have a unit, a top 5 unit, I'll just say top 10 because some people will say we really don't have a top 5. I will take a top 10 unit as offensive line with the progress and the progression of Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Add another playmaker there and get that defensive side fixed. Hey, hey, man.
Here
I
we
mean,
go.
we know the NFC South is a revolving door every year.
Yeah. Some of the guys that I personally envision, and these are just guys that I'm not mocking. I'm just saying I've liked them specifically. You mentioned Mike Green is one, obviously already. Boston College defensive end Donovan Izuionu. I cannot remember, I cannot not pronounce his last name. I like Stewart from South Carolina, or not
Yes.
South Carolina, Texas A&M.
You talking about Stewart? Yes.
Yep, I
Yes.
like Nick Borton as well. I think I'm announcing Nick Scorton. I'm sorry, it's Nick Scorton. I like him as well. I know he wasn't at the Senior Bowl, but he at Purdue, he has some pretty good tape out there. And those are some of the defensive players that I like. But anyway, I can get into more of that later. But let's go into now kind of transitioning from the Senior Bowl into kind of like free agency and the draft, and we can kind of spend most of our time there. I don't want to do predictions necessarily, but we can do kind of what you think when it comes to. We'll start with free agency. So, okay, let's get into it. So, I am a fan of Andy Dalton. Do I think he will be back at the right price? I think he can be. I think teams will be interested in him.
Correct.
But I think at the right price, he could be back. But that's not where I want to focus. I just had to get that out of the way for people who, anyway.
They got that Andy Dalton, that
Yeah,
backup
yeah, yeah.
quarterback question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to focus on three positions, specifically when it comes to the free agents from the Panther side, and then we can go into kind of needs and, predictions and stuff like
Correct.
that. All right.
Got you.
I'll focus first on the special teams. I think Johnny Hecker's coming back. I think it's going to be a 1 year bridge deal, something like that, of that sort, maybe a 2 year deal, something a little shorter. Um, Obviously, JJ, he's coming back. We all know that. It's just a matter of time. And Eddie, I think, is going to test the market. Now, does that mean
Yes.
I think the Panthers are going to completely rid him of his services? Maybe not. It depends on kind of what's out there for Eddie. I do think he'll test the market, though, and I don't think he's coming back, but I do think he will test the market initially and see what he can get from there. That's kind of my thought on the special teams unit.
Hold on,
Safety.
can I give you a nugget, Ryan?
Yes, you can.
I would say this: Coach Bates was at the Senior Bowl. I did an interview with him. He talked about the optimism of in the building going into 2025. But the nugget that's there is he was working very heavily with the Miami kicker.
Oh, yeah, I
And
did see that. Yeah,
when I
yeah.
say heavenly, like everywhere, like even after practice, they were doing kickoffs. They were doing extra field goals. Like, I mean, even though he
Rookie
was a
kickers
special
scare
team,
me. I'm not gonna lie. They do scare me. Very much so. So, we'll see if that guy becomes a Panther. But that's
I
good
would
to
say
know.
right now, if you ask me, a 70-30%. 70 saying yes. And I mean that like he has a great leg. He didn't miss one kick in practice. One.
But we know this Jake Bates with the 49ers. What's the kid from Florida State with the Bucks? That was years
Yeah.
ago. I
Yeah.
mean, these stories are documented. Rookie kickers are just. I'll believe it when I
So
see it.
answer this question. When we had Harrison Butner and he went to Kansas City, what happened?
I know that's the one I never forgive Marty.
Hey, I
I
mean,
never
hey,
forgive Marty Herner for that one.
like I said, I'm throwing that out there. I mean, we're saying something about a rookie kicker. He went out and was a rookie kicker, and kind of, sort of, right now, depends on who you ask. He's probably one of the great kickers in the league right now that you can guarantee that can bank one through there for you.
You're right. You're right. Let's go to the safety room. I think this is going to be a very much an overhauled room. Damani Richardson,
Yes.
I think, is going to be back, obviously, but um, I think Sam Franklin will be back at the right price. Nick Scott might be back at the right price as a backup, but only as a backup, just for depth, because I don't think you want to lose all of your starters. That's just, I mean, I'm sorry, all your pieces. My bad. Sam Franklin Jr., I think, would be back at the right price, but Xavier Woods, not going to be back. I don't think Jordan Fuller was healthy scratch. That's a good dead. That's a dead giveaway. So I really like Malachi Starks in this draft. I don't think we
Yes.
should draft him at 8, but I do like him a lot. He reminds me of Kyle Hamilton from the Ravens. Very much a downfield player and can just get after you. That dog that Dan Morgan talks about and that famous
Hmm.
press conference he talked about with dogs. So what are your thoughts on the safety room in 2025?
So, other than Demani Richardson, I want a clean room. I'm done with all of them. I mean, Sam Franklin, he's good on special teams, but he also will get you a 15-yard penalty. He nitpicks with
Sure,
people on special teams.
sure.
Outside of special teams, what does he bring value? I'm saying he got one of the longest return interceptions last year against Minnesota. Hey, okay, I understand that. But where he fails at is in coverage. He's great in the box, but he's
Yeah.
not a great coverage safety where we're in a throwing league now. For me, I do think we will attack. That is a area that we may attack in free agency for the right price. Sam Franklin can come back for the right price. Nick Scott, I don't want back. Xavier Woods, I don't want back. Jordan Fuller, pack your bags, go ahead and get on the bus. Hey, nice knowing you. But I do like Malachi Starks. I'm gonna give you another name that I like too is Xavier Watts. And
That's a good one too. Yeah.
I did have to do a little more digging when Rashad gave me those names because I was just more looking at the D line. But whenever I knew we needed safeties, I was like, okay, I see it there. And 7 picks in his last year. Xavier Woods should have had more with the opportunities, but the one thing I have a problem with our safety room is they never wrapped up. It was thud. They are never physical wrapping up a running back and getting your nose dirty. It was always I'll throw my arm out, I'll throw my body out there. So I need some covering safeties and some safeties that don't mind getting dirty,
Yep.
getting down there, hitting a running back in the mouth, and like you said, being a true dog.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then finally, the last one that I wanted to hit position wise is center. That is the one that people are also talking about a lot. And then I'll give you a quick prediction on the one other player I want to hit on before going to the draft. So we have Austin Corbett, we have Brady Christensen, and we have Cade Mays.
Hmm.
Corbett and Christensen are unrestricted. Cade is restricted. Okay, here's what I think. I'm going to go with what I think should happen first, and then what I
Okay.
think is going to happen second.
Okay.
You can look at PFF, you can look at all the stats you want, and sometimes you just have to go with the eye test.
Okay.
Austin Corbett got injured. He's been injury prone. I love the guy. Unless he signs a prove it deal, he's going to be gone, in my opinion, unless he
Hmm.
signs a prove it deal.
Hmm.
Cade Mays performed best PFF numbers that way. But I like Brady Christensen. I like him a lot. Now,
Hmm.
I know the staff sees him as a backup because that's what he didn't really start most of the at the rest of the season with Cade Mays did. He had the one game when Cade had the flu and Christensen came in and started. But so yes, ultimately, what should happen, I think they should resign Brady Christensen because you can get him at a pretty decent price if you're letting Cade Mays and Corbett walk out the door. But what do I think is going to happen? I think Corbett comes back on a prove it deal, and I think Cade Mays gets resigned because he will be cheaper than Brady Christensen as a whole. I think Brady Christensen is going to command a pretty hefty penny out there. Um, but I like Brady Christensen, and it's gonna be sad to lose him. He played left guard for us really well before Damian Lewis came to town, and while he was seen as the weak link on the line at left guard, in that starting five with Iquanu and Bradley Bozeman back and a few others back in the day, he's still a solid football player. And so we're going to
Hmm.
lose him, I think, predictably in free agency. And so I do think they're going to bring back Corbett on a prove a deal and Cade Mays and have him battle it out in camp to start for the starting center. But I would be remiss if I didn't say I really hope, as much as I love both of those guys, I hope it's Brady Christensen back as opposed to the other two. But I'm not the GM, so I don't make those decisions.
So I'll say this. Would you rather have a one trick pony or a utility guy?
Brady Christensen's played all over the line.
That's your utility guy. For me, I would say the way Kate Mays, he left, he took over, he solidified at least an opportunity to be back. I think you
I would
let
agree.
Austin. I think you let Austin Corbett walk, and then you have Andrew Ram still underneath a rookie contract. So you have Andrew Ram, you have Kate Mays, and you have Brady Christensen as a backup, regardless that they battle it out, or if somebody goes down, if Taylor Moton goes down, if Icky goes down, he can, he can step up to the plate. For me, for Corbett, I mean that knee is not, worth it. That knee is not good right now. Again, you have something back to back years, and then you have three on the same leg in back to back seasons.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say he has to hang it up, but you're not gonna be the same person because you're gonna question that leg. You make a wrong step, you're gonna hobble up, you're gonna pull up. So for me, I think if you say, Doug, what do you think? I honestly think you get the youth. The youth has shown you that they can compete. They show promise. This is a young team, and they're not going to cost as much. I do think Brady Christensen out of the three will cost the most because he can do the most. But I think he deserves that dollar because again, I called him the utility man. He's not just one man that you put in a box. He can do anything across that line. So I do think he is deserved that dollar. He's worth that dollar, and I think he deserves that dollar.
Yeah. My prediction is the Panthers will give him a number and say we're not going past this number, and then he'll test the market and see what he gets out there from the Brady Christensen standpoint. Um, Real quick, I want to give you Shaq Thompson really quick, but before I say that, Taylor Moton, I do think it's very simple with him. That $30 million cap hit, we know that ain't happening. He's going to get
Restructure.
extended.
That's a
He's going to get
restructure or extension. Not a,
He's going
it's,
to get extended. I
Yep,
can see a
correct.
one or like a 2 year deal, maybe 2 to 3 year deal, no more than three, minimum of one, but maximum three. And I wouldn't be shocked if they go get his replacement in this draft. Go get you a right tackle replacement. What?
We're thinking on the same mind, Ryan. I said this, and go ahead, finish your thought. If you got to
Yeah.
finish your thought, finish your thought
No,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
do like your point.
Before I was gonna ask about Shaq Thompson after you finish your thought there. Go ahead.
So I'm gonna say this, Ryan. We did not correlate this. I have been saying this in my mock. you'll see me draft a tackle. The reason why I say you draft a tackle, you don't have to do a premium tackle. There's tackles that you can get in between the fourth and seventh, well, fifth and seventh round. If you do not get a tackle right now, you give Taylor Moton a 2-year deal. Why wait until next year when he can go ahead and mold your future right tackle? I totally agree with you. Getting a tackle in this draft, either undrafted or drafted, and have Taylor Moton, who has been a staple on your offensive line through all this turmoil, through David Temper's reign, through all these different coaches. He's been here. He doesn't really miss games, and he's very solid every game he plays. Mold your future right tackle. Because I do think he only has about 2 to 3 years. I'll give him a 3-year deal, 2 years guaranteed, one with a flex with a player option. And
Okay,
that gives you time for him to actually get ready to mold your future. Because
yeah,
again, I honestly do think he's going to retire a Panther. He is not
agreed.
going to any other team.
Agreed. Agreed. Last free agency player I wanted to mention was Shaq Thompson. But before I do that, is there any other player that you wanted to mention from the free agency list that I did not mention before we go on to the draft? I was going to ask about Shaq Thompson. That's my last
We
one.
could talk. I would say this with Shaq. We talk numbers about our center position with Brady, Corbett, and Mays. Sometimes, oh, this pains me to say this.
Well,
This
here's what I
pains
think.
me.
I'll tell you my thought. Here's what I think is going to happen. Jerry Richardson did this with Thomas Davis. He's going to walk into David Tepper's room and he's going to say, "Mr. Tepper, I know I've been injured and I know that your turf, I want you to come back to grass, but we know that's not going to happen.
Mhm.
But Mr. Tepper, please give me a prove it deal. Please give me a deal that I can finish my career here in the Carolinas. I don't want to play for another team, like you said with Taylor Moton. And I
Yeah,
think if he accepts that, then the question is whether Shaq accepts it. I think if the Panthers
correct.
if the Panthers approach him and say, "Hey, we know you want to retire a Panther. We've seen you talk about this. The turf isn't going away, but can you play on a 2-year, 1-year deal, prove it deal, 1-year deal, and then maybe year to year
We'll
after
follow
that." So,
through.
but do I think he ultimately accepts that? No, I think he goes elsewhere. But that's I would like to see that happen though.
So answer this: do you think you remember doing his S interview? He said he has 5 years in him. I
I
don't
agree.
believe that.
I don't believe that though.
I will give him a max of 3
I would
because
agree.
with his injuries, um, he tore the didn't he tear an Achilles?
Yep.
And then
Achilles.
and then, then he had the freakish injury this past year.
Yep.
I just again, he's a leader, and that's the part that pains me because
Oh yeah.
you need a leader on the D line, linebackers, and corners.
Yeah.
Well, DBs. Let me say DBs. J.C. Horner's your leader in the DB room. Derrick Brown's your leader on the defensive line.
Yeah.
Who's your leader now in the middle of that pack? I know Josie Jewell. People have mixed bad feelings about him. You do have a rookie in Trevin Wallace that showed promise, but that's where I say I agree with you with the prove it deal. I my gut is saying, and I have to spit it out, 2 years. I don't think they give him a 2 year. I do agree with you, Ryan, that a 1 year deal is going to be the option, but I would not be surprised if they give him 2 years, maybe about 8 mil for for per year with incentives that he has to play a certain amount of games. And that's one thing I did love what Brandon Tillis was able to do in some of these guys' contracts. It was incentive based. I'm going to give you this amount of money, but you have to hit certain incentives.
Yeah.
Dan Jackson got an incentive based contract. Mike Jack got an incentive based contract. Josie Jewell got it. Every offseason addition that we brought in on that defensive side had a incentive contract. Yes, they had a base salary, but it was incentive based on you had to meet these criteria to get that money that you want.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk draft. Um, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention one thing. Not this is more big picture. Trades and kind of people that are coming back. We saw the Adam Thielen news. He is coming back for another year.
Great
That's
news.
obviously good to hear. Talk about I don't know if you saw what Peyton Manning had to say on Bryce Young on
Mm-hmm.
Panthers.com. And then obviously the Myles Garrett news. People are talking about, can Myles Garrett, will he come to Carolina? Um, Peyton Manning, loved what he said about Bryce. You could talk about that. I want Miles Garrett. I don't think anyone doesn't want Miles Garrett, but
Mhm.
I'm realistic in saying he's not coming to Charlotte unless he thinks the Panthers are close to contending, because we're not contenders.
Correct.
Unless he thinks they're close to contending,
Correct.
then he might consider it. But even then, you're going to have to give up your number 8 pick. You're going to have to give up a 2026 first round pick at least. And that's just a starting position pick wise for Miles Garrett. As good as he is, and gosh, is he good, I just, it's not worth it, in my opinion, to trade the number 8 pick and a 2026 first, and then probably some other picks as well for a player who's going to be 30 next year. And yes, he probably will be good through like 34, 35 years old. I would count on Miles Garrett to be that good. But he hasn't had any major injuries yet. You just don't know if that's going to
If
stay
that's
that
gonna
way.
come.
I If Dan Morgan could somehow do this 2 years in a row, he did this with Brian Burns talking at the Senior Bowl with our old friend. I'm blanking on his name right now, Joe Shane, and then we saw Dave Canales talking with Kevin
Yep.
Stefanski.
Yep. And that blew. Yeah.
It, I'm just gonna. I want Miles Garrett, but I don't think it's worth it. The draft capital you're gonna have to move up to get him, and you're gonna have to pay him all that money, and we are just not 3 pieces away from doing that. Anyway.
And I agree with you. I was gonna say, you talk about the draft cap. I'm talking about the money. We don't have the money for his contract right now, unless these extensions with JC and Moten, and then some of these players getting post June 1 first cuts or restructures. We don't have the money for his contract and still add to this defense. Again, yes, it's great to have that star, but when you get him, we still have no safeties in the backfield. So to help a D line, you have to have a great, DB room. You have to have great safeties and corners. We don't have any DBs right now. So why give all that attention and draft capital away when you build a championship team through the draft just for one player?
Yeah.
It's worth it, like you said, Ryan. I agree. But I'm looking at the bigger picture. I'm looking at the two teams that are playing in the Super Bowl. Kansas City and Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia has killed the draft. The board has just fell in their favor the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Just look at all the Georgia Bulldogs. They're there. They're really calling the Georgia Eagles. You can call them the Philadelphia Bulldogs, whichever one you want to call them.
Yeah.
The talent that they've been able to get in the draft is the reason why they're there where they are right now. So for me, I would say it's a pass, but it's almost like you want to shed a tear because it's like if we can get them, we need to get them.
Yeah.
But I know what the bigger need is right now.
Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on Peyton Manning and his kind of thoughts with Bryce Young and as the Panthers.com put that out?
So that goes with what Dave Canales said. It was literally almost back to back days. Dave said something, and Peyton said something. I think everybody is understanding. I'll say it. I'm not gonna say the person's name. There was a well-known NFL person that works for NFL Network that off camera, I don't have this on camera, but I'm quoting him directly. We asked him about Bryce Young. He said, people have to understand Bryce Young was a starter from modern day as a ninth grader for varsity, which where
I'm pretty sure I know who this is, but go ahead.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, when he brought that, I was like, whoa. And I'm like, modern day is a powerhouse. Then he said he's never faced adversity until he's been in the pros. He said he was so nervous about how Bryce was going to react to adversity when he came back that he said when he came back, he said he think Bryce even leveled up and hit another tier in his game that he never saw from the days of him being a kid to a grown man now. So for hearing Peyton Manning, like I said, I heard this face to face with the person. Then hearing what Peyton said and then what hearing Dave said, I'm like, we got the right guy. Regardless of the numbers, I understand people want us to have that 4,000-yard passer, that 29-11 ratio. We're a run first team. I think he finally clicked those last 10 games. The last 4 games, I think he averaged, I think I seen a stat, I think it was on CBS that had a total of 10 touchdowns. Each of the last 3 games, he was 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, Total yards per game is 273, 275. You have that for the rest for a whole season. Hey, like I said, I understand our defense is the focal point right now. But again, our offense is clicking right now. You bring Chuba back. If you do bring Miles Sanders back, you have a healthy offensive line. You may add a weapon here in the draft or bring a veteran in to go along with that wide receiver core. Hey, man, this defense could be a top 15 unit.
Yeah. I sent you a guess in the DMs. Don't confirm or deny there. I would don't get anyone in trouble. So okay, all right. So let's get into the draft. And before I say this, before I get into the draft, actually, let me give you a few of my predictions. This is just what I'm hearing and just kind of my gut feeling. I think the Panthers are going to go after Zach Bond from former Saints, now Eagles linebacker, who's had a very good year. I think they're going to go after him very hard. If they don't get him, I could see someone like a Josh Sweat from the Eagles coming here instead. I could also see Milton Williams coming here from the Eagles. Those
From
are
the
the three
Eagles.
Eagles to
Yep.
watch. Those are my three Eagles to watch. Um, those are the players that I have currently to watch on defense from a free agency standpoint. Obviously, everyone wants to talk about T. Higgins. Everyone wants to talk about some of the other players. We'll see. I don't. And then Garrett Wilson, that thing blew up. Too earlier in the offseason.
It
I
blew
will
up.
see on those two. But again, you got. I know you got to pay. I know you got to pay. But we're not one player away, people. And the receiver room is also pretty good now. I mean, still need your true number one. You could argue,
Correct.
but it's better. Okay, let's get into the draft.
So,
Mock
so,
draft.
so
Go ahead.
hold on
Sorry.
real quick, Ryan. Check
Yeah, yeah.
check your phone. I told you the name, but also I will say this: Dan Morgan and Mike K did say that they are not going to stop the growth of these young wide receivers, meaning that the cost of a wide receiver, they're not going to throw the boatload for it. They're going to be strategic with it. If the price is right, if the price drops, then they will pay attention or give it a little bit of heat underneath it. But I do agree with you that the defensive line is going to be addressed. Again, I did hear from Dan Morgan. He said they're going to double dip. They're going to be very aggressive. They already have the names. He didn't give me any names, which I appreciate because once I'm able to pull back what he said, I can be like, okay, I see where you were saying. You were aggressive year one, you're aggressive year two. So that's all I have to say. I do think they have that plan. I do believe in the plan. I just have to see it come through fruition. So that's all I'm hoping.
My safety targets. That's the other names I was going to say. I like Javon Holland from Miami, a little bit older player, but he's solid. And then Morningwig from the Raiders as well. Trayvon Morningwig, I think is his name, something like
Yes,
that.
Monterey, yeah, from the
Yeah,
Raiders. Yeah, I like
yeah.
him.
Him and Holland from Miami are the two names to watch. I think for safety free agency, in my opinion. They're going to
Yep.
command a pretty penny though. Let's get into the draft now and kind of end our conversation here with the draft, mock draft. Panthers at number 8 overall. We can just go through and do a mock. I'll tell you kind of my gut feeling on some of these, and we can kind of agree, disagree, however you want to.
However you want to do it. Hey, I'm your
Yeah.
guest. You let me know.
Okay. Tennessee at number 1. I just can't. Okay. Will Levis, as much as he wants to say that he's going to approve or earn himself a job, after this 3-14 is 3-14, buddy. I do think though, I could see Tennessee taking Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter at number 1. Just
I agree.
not passing on that generational talent. Now,
I
if
agree.
they, so I'm going to say Tennessee takes Abdul Carter number 1. That's just I'm going to go with. I'm going to say it there. And these are
Okay.
no trades.
Okay.
Cleveland goes Travis Hunter at number 2, and gets the Mr. Travis Hunter.
I disagree on that one.
Okay.
One reason.
Giants will get Shador at number 3. They'll draft Shador.
Okay.
Now Cleveland could go Cam Ward. You are correct. That would be my other pick for Cleveland.
Correct. Okay.
So in your scenario, if they did go with Cam Ward, I think Travis Hunter goes to New England at 4. That would be
Correct.
in that
Yes,
understanding.
sir.
Okay. Okay. Jacksonville. Okay. My player that I want the Panthers to select is Mason Graham. I don't think he's going to get to 8, but I can see a scenario where he might get to 8. I think they're either going to go Mason Graham or Will Johnson from Michigan. Those are my
Michigan.
two.
That was my pick. I was hoping you said that one. I'm hoping Will Johnson, but
Yeah,
yes, that would
same.
be my pick.
Vegas is going to go quarterback. I could see them going Cam Ward if he's not selected by Cleveland. If he does get selected, I could see them going with a Ted McMillan at wide receiver or a there's a bunch of other players that I could say here. Or offensive line is another one that I could say.
The guy out of LSU,
Yeah, yeah.
Campbell. So
Campbell. Campbell. I
so
think
I
his name.
would say this. What I'm hoping, and the nugget that's came out at the Senior Bowl is there may be a third quarterback that moves up in the top 10. If that happens, if a third quarterback goes, Carolina's going to get somebody that was not supposed to drop that's going to drop.
Amen.
That's the
Yep. Yeah. Amen. The Jets, I could definitely see them going O line, protecting Aaron Rodgers, whoever the quarterback's going to be, whether that's Campbell, whether that's the guy from Texas. If Will Johnson's off the board at that point, I could see them going to Will Johnson. But at 8, let's just get to the Panthers at 8. Okay. Um, so we'll go. All right. So I'll go. I'll just lock these in so I don't screw this up.
okay.
We'll say Tennessee, Abdul Carter, Cleveland, Cam Ward,
Hmm.
Giants, Shador, New England. New England, I'm going to go off the board here. I'm going to say that I'm going to reroute this. New England will get the offensive lineman from LSU, Will Campbell, or Texas, one of those two guys. New England's going to go O-line.
Okay.
Jacksonville will go Travis Hunter,
Okay.
give Lawrence a weapon. Vegas will go Will Johnson.
Okay.
Jets will go or the quarterback or the third quarterback, but I'm going to go with Will Johnson.
Okay.
And then the Jets, I'm going to say we just miss. Hmm, hmm.
Are the Jets going to get Mason?
Yeah, I'm going to go Jets Mason, but yeah, I'll go with Mason because the value there is too good. But that's who I really want the Panthers to get is Mason Graham. But in this scenario, I think you're looking at in this my mock draft here, you're either looking at Ted McMillan from Arizona for the Panthers at 8, or a not Mikael Williams, Jalen Walker from Georgia. Those are the two players that I would choose from at 8 in this scenario here. Um, both players would be fantastic picks. Jalen Walker reminds me of Trayvon Walker from Georgia, but better in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And Mikael Williams, I'm not convinced on him. I need to see some more on him. Ted McMillan, the comp's Drake London, but what do you think? If it's between Jalen Walker and Ted McMillan, who do you think the Panthers would select in that? And if they were considering those two players, if I was correct, who do you think they would select?
They'll probably go Tech, but I was going to say I'm surprised you didn't say start because we talked about
Safeties at eight is high, and same
it
with
is
Tyler
high.
Warren from Penn State. That's the other guy I didn't mention because tight ends are high. I know Brock
Yeah.
Bowers did it last year,
Yep.
but I mean
Yep.
it's high.
Yeah.
Too high for me.
I
I think
mean,
the only way we get Tyler Warren or Starks is if the Panthers trade back.
and I was gonna say that's my scenario, but with no trades, I'm taking Tech. I mean, again, this D line class is very deep. So, um, this is where Dan Morgan's gonna have to get in his bag. He loves trading. He
Yes, he
loves
does.
trading up. He's gonna have to. I mean, outside of number 8, I'm talking about for the rest of the draft.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a big gap. But I mean, right now, I would take Tech. Again, because I do believe in that depth. Um, outside of the first round, a couple of names that we named that have been stars as standouts in the Shrine and Senior Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, you just look at that receiver room. If the Panthers were to draft Ted McMillan, you've got Ted McMillan, Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker,
And then Adam
a
Thielen.
Adam Thielen, who's probably your number 3, number 4 receiver, and then oh yeah, Mr. David Moore, who I think they're going to resign back. I know we didn't talk about him. I think he's going to be a
A
cheap
lot of
receiver.
people are saying that. Yep.
Um, that's a nice place to start in the receiver room with an addition of Ted McMillan. Um, Okay, so there's kind of a little bit of a mock draft. I was going to at least go through the Panthers pick at 8. I'm not prepared to do a whole 32. I can come back at another time. I have not studied it enough yet on that standpoint. And I just don't have the bandwidth to do a mock draft in my spare time. Got two kids, under three here, so don't have a lot of spare time
Yes, sir.
with those. But I'll just go with my dream scenario. Obviously, Abdul Carter's not making it to eight. Lottery pick, no shot. Mason Graham is who I really want the Panthers to select. Let me talk about him.
Correct.
Derek Brown and Mason Graham would absolutely wreak havoc on the NFC South. This would be like, okay,
Starla Tule and KK Short. I'll say
yes,
it for you.
yes, combined, and then maybe I mean, or you could throw Vita Vea for the Bucks, who's currently
Yes.
there currently right now. I mean, Mason Graham, I don't know if I think people are sleeping on this guy. The stuff that he was doing at Michigan was just absolutely filthy, and like he was making some really good players look average. And I don't think he's going to be there at eight. Ultimately, I think he's going to be gone. But
Yeah.
if the Panthers put it this way, if Tech McMillan and Mason Graham are both there at eight, I'm
You
sorry,
better
Tech.
you better pull the trigger on Mason Graham.
Yeah, I'm sorry, McMillan. We're going Mason Graham. It is just, and yes, you might have to see the Saints pick McMillan, and you face him twice for the next decade. But
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I just love Mason Graham. My other big one that I think is realistic, is like you said, Ted McMillan is another one I'm watching. Jalen Walker is another one I'm watching. And then if we were to trade back, as I said, Tyler Warren, Malachi Starks, are the ones for trade back. Now, Mike Green, people talk about him. I still don't know if eight. I just don't know if eight is high enough. I mean, it's too high for him. I think it is. I think they only go trade back scenario with him. Maybe I'm wrong.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm crazy, but
No, you're not. You're not.
I just can't do it. And I know there's trait C players. Shamar Stewart's another one. People just love trait C players. I mean, Trayvon Walker for the Jaguars is just now coming into his own a little bit. That was the number
Hmm.
one pick. Everyone, oh, A.J. Hutchinson got drafted number two overall, and then Trayvon Walker we was number one. So yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a weak draft. I mean, talking to some people. And I can't take credit for this. I believe this was I think Colin Cowherd said this. He talked to a general manager in the NFL. He said that if Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith came out this year, they would be the top two picks in the draft, hands down, like absolutely hands down, farther than
Yeah.
anybody else. Um, I mean, who is your generational players in this draft to you? Abdul Carter
Do Carter and Travis Hunter.
and Travis Hunter. Right. There's no other generation. Mason Graham is not generational, but he is darn good.
He's impactful. He's
He's
impactful in the
impactful. Yeah,
right
there you go.
scheme.
Yeah. So you got a few guys like that. But anyway, so to wrap it up, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on the draft. Some of the positions you think we should go after. Is there any kind of low key positions? We all know about the defensive tackle, defensive end, linebacker,
Hmm.
or however you want to call that. Wide receiver potentially. But what are some other positions that you want to see the Panthers attack in this draft come April?
Safety and tackle. We talked about it when it came to Taylor Moton. Again, I think that contract will happen, but again, we need to start molding our future. You don't wait till the very end and he said, "Oh, I'm done." Then you have to look at a panic pick, where that first round pick you may be drafting, a tackle. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't want us to panic. So again, I do think offensive lineman, specifically tackle is an important key, and I'm not opposing them drafting two young safeties. I'm not. So I mean, those are outside of, like you said, the obvious, the interior D lineman, the D and wide receiver and linebacker. I do think tackle and safety is a very key position that we do need to look at.
Yeah. Well, as I said at the top, my guest today has been WassupDoug. He is follow him. Where can people follow you? Just give us a reminder where we can follow you. What are some things you're working on? Things that you want the listeners to know.
All right, yes, sir. I appreciate Ryan having me join him tonight for Inside the Vault. You guys can find me at WASSUP space DOUG, and that spells out What's Up Doug on YouTube. And on Twitter, you can find me at What's Up Doug 336, representing Greensboro, North Carolina, where I was, grew up and raised. I am a Carolina boy, so hey, I had to represent and make sure I put that 336 on the back end. Um, we have our first mock out. We did 1.0. We will do our members only mock draft dropping next week. We'll do a combine video, a couple of players that we want to see how they do during the combine. I kind of gave you guys a couple of names that we're looking out for.
Yep.
That will drop to the members and that will drop to the public. Then I will be taking a short vacation. To go spend time with my girlfriend, friends and family to spend her 30th. And then I will be back tentatively March the 6th to do our first live. If not March the 6th, it'll be the following week. But trust me, we'll have about maybe 2 or 3 videos out for the rest of the month. We did really great in January. I know people said we took a hiatus, but we wanted, we had a plan. Now you guys see the plan. I was basically getting media credentials for the 2025 season. So again, we have a lot in store for the off season. Definitely have some more collabs. Again, I appreciate Ryan bringing me on for my thoughts, us discussing how we see the off season, the draft, and everything. So it's very promising times for the Carolina Panthers right now, man. So I appreciate it.
Last question for you, as we get you out of here. Kind of leave the fans with a little positivity going out the door. What is something that you think we're not talking about enough with this with the Panthers in general? I just love getting this question from people because you get so many different answers from people, and a lot of the times people are right. It comes to fruition.
I will say this: winning that last game and being able to talk to Coach Bates, he just literally made me feel what I saw through the TV. Like the smell, the aura, and everything in that organization right now going into the offseason is very high. Um, you can win a game and you can be like, we didn't do what we need to do. I think they know what they need to do. I'm very optimistic about it. I basically asked Bucky Brooks and Coach Bates, is the optimism real? Is it warranted for Carolina Panther fans to feel the way they feel going into 2025? I do think if we do, attack the offseason like I think Dan Morgan will do, I mean, hey, the offense was clicking. You get a top 15 defense, and we possibly could possibly be, competing for a NFC South crown this year.
I
But
was going
I'm
to
very
say NFC
optimistic.
South is not it's not the AFC North or the NFC North. So
No, no, I am very optimistic going into 2025. That is, my positivity to leave for Panther fans. I just think it is the right time. I think we have the right coach. We don't have to have a revolving door of a coaching staff. And like Dan Morgan and Dave Canales said, they can hit the ground running, not worried about hiring or hires. They can literally pay close attention to free agency and prospects.
and the fact that David Tepper has finally stepped back, at least for now, which I think he has for good. He's in the background now. Brant Tillis is another person that we're not talking about enough, just coming in and just the reorganization of the contracts and kind of at the cap and how all that's working out now is just music to my ears, music to a lot of
Correct.
Panther fans' ears. Mr. Brant Tillis. Um, well, this will wrap up episode 57 of Inside the Vault. Wherever you get your podcast, rate, review, and subscribe. We'll see you next time. And thanks again to WassupDoug for coming on.
Yes, sir.
And we'll see you again real soon, guys. Peace out for now.